Like, you can't replace that. I don't care about guys that play hard. That's one thing. But when you play hard and play with tenacity, the noise talking, the getting into your face, not being afraid to ruffle the feathers, you cannot replace that.
KJWEEI 617-779-7937. Text line 37937. Turn it up, Ryan, since Perk is on these Grant Williams and Marcus Smart blues. Squeeze my lemon. Come on. One guy was chucking up shots and almost gave Jimmy Butler 2 straight championship trips to the NBA Finals. And the other one wasn't playing in half the playoff games. I'll get to Smart and Williams here in a second. 617-779-7937. Let's go to Mike in Weymouth. We're talking about Jaylen Brown's fault why free agents don't want to come here?
Yeah, thank you for taking my call, first of all.
Yeah.
But I think part of it, if you're going to go back to the interviews that Jaylen Brown gave a couple months ago
okay,
about Boston and the city, you don't think he's having these talks with people around the league, or his agent's not having those talks with people around the league that maybe for some reason he feels Boston's not great to come to? And then you're talking about giving him, almost $60 million a year to be one of the representatives, like the faces of our team? First, I just don't get it.
Mike, thanks for the call. You know, he's got a point, right? If you look back at this New York Times article where Jaylen Brown's, infamously kind of said he's been having trouble finding a place. And people are like, you can afford to live somewhere. And here's some of us who are kind of like, I kind of get what he's saying. Hi, welcome to one of these W towns. Because Brian, there's like one W town in the Commonwealth where like middle class live all next to each other, but right next to it, it's one of the wealthier W's in this town.
Well, I was going to say also, just to the caller's point on, Jaylen Brown's comments in that sit down interview. Do you remember a few years ago, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving were doing a sit down and kind of ripping on Boston and the fans and, kind of the racist fans and that kind of behavior from fans. So I don't think it's just a Jaylen Brown thing. And, I'm sure it doesn't help when Damian Lillard's looking at it and says, wow, a guy who currently plays there feels this way about it, but I feel like it's kind of a whole league thing. Guys like Kyrie, guys like Durant, guys probably like Draymond when you're chanting F you Draymond. Kyrie, when he comes back, you're throwing water bottles at him, you're doing all this. You just look around the league, and I'm sure the players side with players more than they side with, Boston sports fans. Just kind of, how I view it.
Yeah, look, I know this isn't an episode of CSI, but damn, they need to hire us on one of the factions of CSI, because I think we're getting down to the bottom of it. If players continue to have conversations that they may be having that people believe that they have, or this caller Mike from Weymouth just said that, hey, what does that mean for the future of the franchise? What is it? Is it going to be a bunch of Dino Rajas? What are we looking at here in the future? Because if these players are talking to each other in this regard, and this is a much different league than, oh, baby, you should just be proud we were able to finally buy a house. Now this league, mama's got her 4th house, the way these players get paid. So there's no more so much of you should be appreciative whoever you play for because you're making this amount of money. It's now like I can get the money from any of these teams. Oklahoma City will dig in their pocket if I need them to.
And not to get too into the weeds about things and, start, putting on our conspiracy caps, but I don't know. You look at, how other players view the Celtics organization as a whole. They look what they did to Isaiah Thomas, who, say what you will about him, but at the time was a star.
Let's be honest with Isaiah Thomas. He had a hip problem. It showed up for the rest of his career.
Absolutely.
Right?
And
so
I think that's
one. That guy the max deal as much as you love him.
But then you look at the situation right now with Jaylen Brown. Do players around the league look at it? It's like, how have you not given Jaylen Brown the supermax yet? Like, do players look at the Celtics organization and question kind of what they're doing with their money? As to your point, any team can give gobs of money nowadays.
Right.
So it's not like the Celtics are the only team that can pay these players these kinds of salaries. And they're already being a stickler with Jaylen Brown, their own guy who, you let off the show talking about, homegrown guy. He's been here forever, whatever. But now they're not even paying him a contract that, he's up for. Like, that, feel like if you're a player around the league, you look at that and like, how well do they treat their star players?
Well, I think at the end of the day is the Celtics are not going to give the players the control of the franchise. I mean, even LeBron is finding that out with the Lakers. Like, LeBron will not get a statue in front of whatever to be named in 2 weeks, .com arena. He's not going to get a statue. He's not going to be considered a Laker. He's going to retire a Cav, right? And you're like, go ahead and do your movies. But your son is not coming on this team. I think that's what's coming down the pike for LeBron. And in fairness, the Celtics kind of operate the same way. You're not going to dictate to a historic franchise such as this. We're not talking about the New Jersey, now Brooklyn Nets, where the Nets used to be so bad. They used to give away tickets to high school basketball teams. All you had to do was go to your high school basketball coach and ask, do you have Nets tickets? That's how bad they've been. So they're still fighting an identity crisis. Celtics, no. But with the empowerment of players today, and that's why I think Dame Lillard, that's why I'm kind of calling him a bit BS on, I want to go play for a contender, because there's a contender right there in the causeway. And you're immediately saying no to. So it isn't about necessarily, it may part be who you win a championship with, but not necessarily for. So you may win a championship for the Celtics, but you may not want to win one for Boston. And so I'm trying to figure how longer, who's going to expose this narrative that might be going on around the league with players saying you don't want to go there. And is it because of the franchise or is it because of the city? KJ, WEEI, 617-779-7937, text line 37937. Hope you're having a great Saturday. Remember, Red Sox going for 2 in a row against, I think they have a chance to win 4 in a row today against the A's.
It would be 4 in a row.
It would be 4 in a row if they beat the A's today. And there's a real good hope. And towards the end of the show, as we get closer to Red Sox pregame, I saw something that just made me go, oh, wow, this team may really make the wild card just off of one thing I saw that's coming. And we're about 15 minutes away from would you rather more likely to either or, a question involving Tom Brady. Now, I mentioned, and it started this break, was Kendrick Perkins saying that he wasn't thrilled that Grant Williams was gone because there's a narrative that toughness is gone. And you remember that Grant Williams was gone from the playoffs? I mean, does anybody remember that? 5 DNPs in the playoffs. Game 1 against Miami, Game 5 against Philly, 3 of the 5 games against Atlanta. 5 DNPs. And this is the guy you're going to say we're going to re-sign and keep. 33 rebounds in 15 games. Your defensive guy. You can only steal so many balls. You can only get so many fouls. Can you rebound? Scored in double figures 4 times. 2022 Grant Williams played in every playoff game. 7 double figures. 27 points in the Game 7 clincher against Milwaukee. Then disappeared in the NBA Finals. So literally, the NBA Finals of the previous year carried into the playoffs of this year. Folks, what we have is a local versus great argument. Let me explain. Local is the guy that you draft, right? Like, I'll get to Marcus Smart in a second to prove that, sometimes you get so enthralled with the local that you ignore that you're not dealing with great, right? The Celtics are good. They're trying to get to great. But if it's just a local you're worried about, you're not talking about anything great. So this is before Brian and I's time, but I used to hear my dad talk about this, is the territorial draft that the NBA used to have. The idea was because the NBA was third, maybe third on the pecking order, that they wanted to make sure that some teams had local flavor on their team drafted, so they'd have special territorial drafts. Most famously for the Celtics, Tommy Heinsohn was a territorial draft. That's how you end up with Don Nelson. They weren't territorial drafts, but that's how guys from Providence ended up on the Celtics, right? Imagine if that was going on now. The Celtics look like Oklahoma City. Nothing against Providence, but just saying. College basketball around here is not exactly territorial draft material. So losing someone like Grant Williams is like losing a guy that you got in the territorial draft. He's your own. That's what it is today. You drafted him. He's one of your own. It's territorial. But a great Celtic player has almost never been traded from here in their prime. Some good ones, but nobody great. Nobody great gets shipped out of here. So there's literally more comfort for some to deal Jaylen Brown, a great player, than to understand why Marcus Smart, who's a good player, and Grant Williams, who's really an undefined player, they're locals. Look, with Marcus Smart, you have to understand it was strictly business, right? Because The best value you got out of Marcus Smart was before he signed his last extension deal that got him like 18, 19, 20 million a year. Because if you tried to trade Marcus Smart for $8 million a year, who are you cutting back? Evan Fournier? Oh, sorry. You get my point. There was so much value in Marcus Smart when he was getting $8 a year. Then when you start to get to 18 to 20 a year, where you say, okay, we have to be able to move some pieces to get something of real value to get us from good to great. But then came the weird dynamic between Marcus Smart and Joe Mazzulla in the playoffs. And just because you're not Brown or Tatum, that doesn't mean you're bigger than the interim coach who got thrown in there because there was kind of like a societal fire going on with the organization and its coach. See, Marcus Smart has all this toughness, and Grant Williams, all this toughness is going out the door. And I would say, did they win a championship? I mean, Tony Allen would be a better face of saying, and this was the feeling, man, you hate to see that guy go so tough and grit, everything. And you know what? He got us a title. Maybe that's Marcus Smart's destiny in the Western Conference. I said there would be someone in the Western Conference that would be willing to overpay for Marcus Smart, because in the Western Conference, there's nothing but guards you have to defend. Up and down. Dame Lillard, Steph Curry, you name it.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah, there you go. That's on an off night, right? I mean, Devin Booker, now Bradley Beal, Klay Thompson. You got tons of them in the Western Conference. And there's some I still haven't even mentioned.
Anthony Edwards.
Anthony, there you go. So the Western Conference is so filled with guards who are ball dominant, who can score at will, and someone like Marcus Smart's reputation and what he can still do, don't get me wrong, is much more valuable over there than, say, finding someone who can challenge Embiid trying to go up for shots. Remember Embiid going 20 for 25 in that regular season game towards the end of the season? That's like disrespect. In the East, it's the Embiids you have to worry about. It's the Adebayos you have to worry about. It's the Giannis running down the paint and all that size they have in Milwaukee. It's not really guard-centric in the East. So Marcus Smart was just a business decision, and I'm not going to cry over that. Trust me, I know. I used to play R&B records. People loved it. Business decision, R&B records had to go. It's just business. But Grant Williams, I mean, you're talking about a guy who was looking for Marcus Smart money now. Now. And to 5 DMPs in the playoffs, like that's value? I mean, can you tell me other than he was tough? That's what Tatum and Brown have to graduate to, right? There's going to have to be a little more toughness. Derek White is not chopped meat. You got him because I think you saw down the road that Marcus Smart could be expendable and not having to pay a high price for. And it's smart on the part of the Celtics. And now here's the thing about, again, the local, right? Marcus Smart, you may or may not forget, is a lottery pick, but not a lottery player. Listen to Smart's draft and tell me where you hear greatness in these 10 players. Some are good. Others you're like, oh, my God, that's right. Andrew Wiggins 1, Jabari Parker went 2. Joel Embiid 3, Aaron Gordon 4, Dante Exum 5, then Smart, Julius Randle, Nick Stauskas, Noah Vonleh, and Efred Payton. That's your top 10. Heck yeah, if I was Marcus Smart, I would feel like I was a lottery player. With that draft, and you literally redo that draft, Smart may come in 3rd. You might make an argument for Marcus Smart to be drafted 3rd. But not a lottery player. I know defense is important. It's fun to see people flop and drop and roll on the ground and take fouls and everything. But if you're taking shots and they're not dropping, you need to replace that. That's been the Celtics' problem in the playoffs here over the last couple of seasons. Late in games, who else is going to take a shot that's going to go down? Or why isn't Tatum taking shots? It's because Marcus Smart felt that his offensive game was growing, and it hadn't. He's a defensive guy. Mark Smart wins Defense Player of the Year. It's a great thing. Oh, yeah. His 12 points per game ranks only ahead of people like Rodman, Mark Eaton, Ben Wallace, former six-man Michael Cooper, and Draymond Green. How does the Celtics go from good to great? That's all it is. It's just business. Well, think about it. He is going to Memphis, where clearly Ja Morant is the alpha point guard there. Now, granted, he's going to be suspended for like 25 games to start the season. So there's 25 games he gets to kind of kick off the party. But you best believe when it comes down to the end of the game, if it's Desmond Bane, Ja Morant, and Marcus Smart, which two guards get in there for the end of the game, it's probably Ja Morant and Desmond Bane. They just gave Desmond Bane a bunch of money, so you got to play the guy. Now, if he's there to be a leader in terms of Marcus Smart, then absolutely. They need a lot of leadership. They need parental guidance. That's literally what they need. They need someone to well, I'm not a fan of corporal punishment, but, kind of have the threat of dad with the belt at the door of coming home late.
I was going to say, Marcus Smart's their new babysitter.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to say Marcus Smart only has the talent to be a babysitter. Don't get me wrong. He'll be able to tell people what to do, knowing that the superstar on that team has to be told what to do. So here, if you remember, at some point it felt like, and even when Ime was here, that the other person who would speak out was Al Horford. And I said, makes a lot of sense. Al Horford has a demeanor that's very even keel. He doesn't get too high. He doesn't get too low. He has the respect of that locker room. He's been an all-star in his prime. He knows what these guys are going through. But I felt with Marcus Smart is kind of like, hey, don't forget, I was a lottery pick myself. Yeah, ahead of Noah Vonleh and behind Dante Exum. Yes, a lottery pick, not a lottery player. So the emotions of the fans, I get it. You love Marcus Smart. He put the green in his hair. He ran hard for the team. But you know what? The team hasn't won a championship. Tony Allen ran hard, no green hair. I scored almost no points. You probably count on two hands how many times Tony Allen was putting buckets but did the job and helped the team win a championship. Results matter. For Memphis, they just got to make sure the team doesn't all find themselves in the clink on the road. It's almost getting to that point, or at least one player. I don't want to put it on all of them. And for Grant Williams, immediately, do you believe that Grant Williams is now the second option on that team offensively? Exactly. Raise your hand if you think he's the third option, scored option. No? Fourth? That's my point. Now, you say, where does the Celtics lose all the defense? The defense was leaking already this year. Remember when they were scoring 120 a game? It was all cute, but yet they were giving up 112, 114 on average. It's 10 points above the year before when Ime was here. So that has a lot to do with who's in the players' ears. You saw them show up and play defense against Philly in the playoffs, so they could play defense. So I'm not buying that, they've lost toughness. It would be tough to see points go out of the room. Points aren't leaving the room. And so for that, I'm not crying over Argentina and spilled milk, or crying because I'm sour over a lemon because Grant Williams and Marcus Smart are gone.
Marcus, how do the fans feel about you leaving?
Fans, every time I see them, they're devastated. The city is devastated.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the one that should have not taken the ball and shot it all those times in Game 7 against the Miami Heat where Jimmy Butler almost broke the entire franchise's heart? You, Marcus, you. Look, if Marcus Smart wants to get there and get off a little bit of offense, they're going to let him because there's a trade-off. He is going to be for Memphis what they need in terms of locker room leadership. So he's going to get some shots. He's going to be that gunner on the second team there. Tyus Jones is gone. But here, points didn't leave here. Grant Williams, no. But because he was a first-round guy, you feel like he's like a territorial draft piece that you had. You enjoyed the Batman, the costumes and everything. You enjoyed all that. But there was no production on the court. Virtually nothing really rang for the guy since that Game 7 against Milwaukee, where Milwaukee said, leave him open all game. After that, you really didn't get anything. And now you're going to extend this guy? Okay. It's like this. One time I was in this particular union, and this is not to disparage unions overall, but just to kind of give you an idea of how this setup was. You got like a shop steward, right? And the shop steward is supposed to be the guy that's the liaison between the workers and management and so forth and everything, right? So a good shop steward never forgets that he was once one of the people. A bad shop steward is always looking at the ownership's sandwiches and lunches and going, gosh, can I have a piece? Can I eat? Those are the ones you have to watch out for. So this one guy had no problem taking 30-minute smoke breaks, be gone for lunch for 2 or 3 hours, only call for like 30, and was it 30, 15, and 15 to give you your 1 hour, right? This guy had no problem taking 2-hour lunch breaks. This wasn't in the deal or whatnot and so forth. So there's a part of you that felt like, well, if I try to go to him about me wanting a little more extra time, is this guy going to pull rank? That's what it felt like with Marcus Smart. Especially those comments that he made regarding Joe Mazzulla during the playoffs. You pull a little bit of rank. Huh? You just took a 3-hour lunch break in front of everybody and then talked about the management? No. And let's call it what it is. You sign Grant Williams and you keep him here. What does he do exceptionally that you could see over time being beneficial? At best, maybe he becomes another Bruce Bowen. But that defense has to be absolutely amazing. Shut down. I shut down 1 through 5 effectively every night. I could give you 25 minutes. It's just going to be like 25 minutes of hell for them. No, you start hearing a lot of this. Yeah, he's got 2 fouls. He's been in there 2 minutes. Yeah, you don't want to start developing another bad shop steward just because they've been around for a while and they have a little bit of pull because they're local.